Full card predictions for UFC 315. As always, you can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. Welterweight gold on the line in the main event. Belal Muhammad defending his title for the first time since taking it off of Leon Edwards. Jack Della Maddalena getting his first UFC title shot. Jackie D's doing that off of 7 straight UFC wins and also a 17 fight winning streak. You can see there on the screen, he's 17-2. He lost his first 2 fights as a pro, hasn't lost since. Tall task on his hands this week though to take that belt off of Belal Muhammad. We picked Bully B last time out because he's better than Leon Edwards and he's got some of the best fight IQ in the game.
My boy's wicked smart.
And I say that because oftentimes we see fighters go out there and just do what they do best. They try to do what works best for them against everybody, no matter who the opponent is. But Belal Muhammad's different. He's not only playing to his strengths, he's playing around their weaknesses. For example, against a striker like Leon Edwards, Belal Muhammad's going to go out there and wrestle almost nonstop.
Let's wrestle! Let's wrestle!
Against good grapplers like Sean Brady and Dorino Burns, he's going to do a bit more striking. Against somebody like Vicente Luque, not only was he wrestling effectively, but when he was striking, his approach was to not stand right in front of him, work in some kicks, and that worked for him. Versus when he fought Sean Brady and it was all forward, linear, straight line, and an emphasis on punches. And people can call him boring all they want, but he's winning, and that's all that really matters. Now on the other side, Jack Della Maddalena, he doesn't do that. He doesn't fight everybody differently. He fights everybody the same way. That boxing heavy approach, great combinations, touches the body a ton, which is going to open up the head, obviously. But he's one-dimensional, and that's kind of tough for a guy to be one-dimensional and win UFC gold. It doesn't happen all that often, but he's not taking anybody down, especially not Belal Muhammad. That's not even an option here. And he's going to have to defend takedowns for 5 rounds here, and we've seen him taken down in the UFC before. Gilbert Burns took him down 7 times in his last fight. Basil Hafez took him down and controlled him for nearly half the fight. But something Jack Della Maddalena does really well is that he's so slippery. He does a great job of moving constantly, twisting, turning, getting back to his feet, getting out of submissions, and once he does get the fight back into his world, there aren't too many guys that are going to have a good time there, which makes this one tough because it's been a long time since we've seen a good striker not get completely shut down by Belal Muhammad. And you guys know, if you've watched for a while, I am a Bully B kind of guy, but I do think that Jack Della Maddalena becomes the champion this weekend because you look at the wins for Belal Muhammad and they are good wins. We're not poking holes saying, oh, the guys he fought weren't that great. These are great wins, but I want to bring them up because I think Jack Della Maddalena presents something different than all of these guys. So Leon Edwards, and don't hate me for saying this, but he kind of folds under the pressure. Luke, head kick be damned. When things aren't going his way, he kind of looks checked out and disinterested. Plus, he's a very good striker, but it's jab, low kick, occasional elbow, move around, and you need time and space to do that. Gilbert Burns, more of a grappler, also sustained an injury in that fight. I think it was to the shoulder, so kind of throw that one out. Sean Brady, a grappler who couldn't take Belal Muhammad down and offered nothing on the feet. Vicente Luque, very dangerous, but he seems to be more dangerous with kicks, knees, and submissions than he is with his boxing. Wonderboy Thompson, all kicks, and like Leon Edwards, you need space to do that. And Belal Muhammad, he operates in boxing range and closer. Normally, it's going to be a quick flurry to the head so that he can distract you, get in on your hips, get you up against the fence, and that's where most of his game is coming from. But that range, that's Jackie D's jam. Most guys don't want to be there. They're going to try to circle out or shell up, or they're so concerned about the takedown that they're more worried about that than the punches coming back their way. But I think Jack Della Maddalena is going to invite that initial exchange and probably throw some uppercuts to the body and the chest, and when Belal Muhammad's dropping levels, that's going to find its way upstairs. Because Belal's very forward, right? So he's going to back you up. He might throw a hook and then get down into a shot, or he might throw 1, 2, 3 and get down into a shot. And I could see Jack Della Maddalena just kind of taking the 1, taking the 2, and when that 3 comes to get low, that's when the uppercuts come, and I think he's going to give him some serious problems in that range. And of course, there are going to be moments where Belal's able to get him to the mat. That's normal, but Jack Della Maddalena does a great job of moving, getting back up, like we said, and Belal Muhammad doesn't have elite control. He's very good at getting fighters to the mat, but he's not great at keeping them there. I think that slipperiness from Jack Della Maddalena serves him well. Even in the fight against Leon Edwards, you see Belal Muhammad giving up position more than once in that fight, and Leon almost finished the fight with elbows when he got into the guard. I could see JDM doing the same thing. I think what's worked for Bully B might not work that well against Jack Della Maddalena, and more importantly, what hasn't worked for him, I think, is what's going to make it problematic for him, because the issues with Belal Muhammad, not much power in his hands. So he's not really going to be able to get a whole lot of respect on the feet, and against a guy who wants to bang, who wants to brawl, who's going to sit in that pocket and trade with you no matter what's coming back your way, that could be an issue for Bully B. On top of that, lack of submission game, or at least a submission game that's not you know, it's not like you'll write home about it. The threat of the takedown isn't that great because you know that nothing's really going to come from it. Not a whole lot of ground and pound, not a whole lot of submission attempts. So he's really not going to be able to do much with the takedowns. Now, if you think that Jack Della Maddalena might gas out over 5 rounds with the kind of pace that Belal pushes, that would make sense. But I don't think he does. And if he doesn't, I will go with the more dangerous fighter here. I think the challenges that he presents are a little bit different than what Muhammad's had to deal with recently. And I think the consequences of Jack Della Maddalena having success in spots are more dire than other guys that Belal Muhammad's been beating recently. So give me the underdog here. I love me some Belal Muhammad, but the line is wide, the path is clear, the belt changes hands. Give me Jack Della Maddalena by knockout and new. Next, we have Valentina Shevchenko. She's fighting Manon Fiorot this week. The Bullet defending her title once again. Manon Fiorot riding a winning streak, looking to get her first UFC championship. And I'm a bit worried. I was, at least. I'm sure many of you felt the same when you watched her fight Rose Namajunas. Rose Namajunas is injured, undersized. It was still a competitive fight. Manon Fiorot threw a whole lot, but didn't land at a very high clip. So I wasn't all that impressed. But when she came back and beat Erin Blanchfield the way she did, because I think the world of Erin Blanchfield. I think Erin Blanchfield's a problem at 125. For Manon Fiorot to pitch a shutout over 5 rounds, cinema. Very impressive and landed at a lot higher of a clip, which kind of squelched the concerns that I had after seeing the Rose Namajunas fight. Now, granted, it's a lot harder to land on Rose Namajunas than it is somebody like Erin Blanchfield, but it happened. And not only that, but she looked very strong in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. She didn't seem to slow down at all, and she's physically maxed out at 125 pounds, 5'7" at flyweight. That's kind of unheard of. All that muscle, all that strength to show from it. The only other person that's a little bit taller than her is Caitlin Chookagian, but she doesn't have the physical strength to back it. She's not nearly as strong. No, Manon Fiorot's rocking a 93% takedown defense, tank for the division.
Oh, Hercules, Hercules, Hercules.
And of course, she's going to have to deal with Valentina Shevchenko, one of the best to ever do it. And if you're watching this video, I know you know who she is. I'm not going to go through all the stuff that she's done and accomplished. You know who Valentina Shevchenko is. Come on. I will say, though, I was very surprised. You probably saw on Twitter how surprised I was to see that she was the underdog in this one. I figured that she would have been the favorite, but I understand why. Totally get why she would be the underdog here, because she's old. I know she's not that much older than Manon Fiorot, but lots of fights, lots of training camps, lots of coaching, lots of media, all that. Physically, the decline's got to start at some point. And not for nothing, it may already have, right? I don't think that Valentina Shevchenko would tell you that she's in her fighting prime, or at least she wouldn't be telling the truth. And she's still such a beast and so technically sound everywhere that she can still turn away most of the challengers at 125. But I think against Manon Fiorot, she would have to be 100%. She would have to be her best, because I think that kind of quickness, I think that twitchiness in her striking and in her defense, I think that's going to start to slow down a little bit. I think we saw that against Alexa Grasso. She was hell-bent on taking Alexa Grasso down as much as possible. And she's always leaned on her wrestling and her grappling in MMA, but I think it's more of the first option now than ever. And I just worry that she can't take Manon Fiorot down. I think she might struggle to control her on the cage. I think at this point in their careers, the volume from Manon Fiorot at striking range is going to be a big difference maker here. When was the last time Valentina really had to strike over 5 rounds? When she fought Amanda Nunes way back when? So I see why she's the favorite. I like the line as well. I think Manon Fiorot's strength and her takedown defense is going to allow her to decide where this fight takes place. I think she could take down Valentina if she wants to. I think she could surprise her with a takedown of her own. But she probably doesn't go for it. She probably just enjoys the success she had on the feet. Even Alexa Grasso was touching her up in the first fight in spots, dropped her in the second fight. Alexa Grasso doesn't drop anyone. But I think the big, powerful striker with just the crazy volume is going to give Valentina Shevchenko some hell this week and take the belt off of her. I expect the line to move closer to the champ as fight week goes on. So if you want to play the wait and see game and see if you get a better price on Manon Fiorot, that makes sense, but she's the play this week. So give me Manon Fiorot to win this fight by decision. And real quick, if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm. You know how the algorithm works. Next, we're looking at a fight between Jose Aldo. He's fighting Aiemann Zahabi this week. Jose Aldo, Aiemann Zahabi. 2025 doesn't feel real sometimes. I don't have much here. I'm telling you now, I like Aldo. I like the speed. I like the power. I think the boxing's a little bit tighter. I think the low kicking game is a little bit snappier, a little bit faster coming from Aldo. I think that should all be enough for him to cruise to a decision this week. And Zahabi's looked solid as of late. He normally fights and sticks to a very good game plan. They plan well for their opponents over there. But you look at the guys that he's beaten, nothing's really jumping off the page. Pedro Munoz over the hill and losing a lot. Javid Basharat is talented, talented, but might not be as good as advertised when he came into the UFC. Aori Kilang's a punching bag. Ricky Tercios fights like this.
What is that? Oh shit, what is that? Who you fighting?
Draco Rodriguez went winless in the UFC, so while Zahabi's winning, getting his 2 checks, feeling good for him. But the wins aren't really dazzling, or at least the opponents are, and I don't see him getting the nod here in close rounds. I don't care if they're in his hood. Jose Aldo gets love everywhere, so if the rounds are close, I think the judges will lean Jose Aldo. And you look at the recent MMA losses for Jose Aldo, Mario Bautista, Merab, they just held on for dear life against the fence. And Mario Bautista's got to go on to like become champion or something, so he's not vilified the way that he is, because Merab isn't, but Merab did the same thing to Jose Aldo. Mario Bautista's got to go on a Merab-like run to get people back on his side, but that's kind of to give you an idea of just how good Jose Aldo is still at this age, is that you've got a guy who's currently the champion and is looking unbeatable, hanging on for dear life against the fence. So I think that Jose Aldo at striking range, still a problem, a little bit longer than Zahabi as well. I think he's going to produce some bigger moments. I think when he lands his flurries, they're just going to look a bit cleaner. Like if he goes 1, 2, 3 low kick, it's just going to look clean. Everybody's going to go, ooh, and that's going to kind of sway the judges. So I think that Jose Aldo wins here. Give me Aldo by decision. Next, we have former champion Alexa Grasso fighting Natalia Silva. Finally, Alexa Grasso gets to fight somebody not named Valentina Shevchenko. Probably feels good for her. But despite how good that might feel, I do think that she's in trouble this week. Natalia Silva's a problem at 125. Should be fighting for the title next. Elite footwork coming from Natalia Silva. Glides around the outside as well as anybody in the game right now and draws fighters into her striking as a result. And when she lands heavy. Good amount of volume, good amount of power. And for Alexa Grasso, she keeps that high guard, that boxing heavy style. She's going to walk forward, and we saw a good example of what boxing heavy style against somebody who's very light on their feet looks like last week with Surrey City. Cam Smotherman was just kind of standing there walking him down, looking so much slower because he just didn't have the footwork to keep up. I think that's what happens in these Natalia Silva fights, is that fighters, they come in with that high guard, they start trying to walk her down, and she's just out of there running circles around him. I think she does the same thing here, because while Grasso's keeping her hands high and trying to get in range to land her strikes, Natalia Silva's keeping her hands low, skirting around the outside, landing kicks, darting in and out with her punches, and just being really hard to pin down. Now, given the experience, if this was a 5-round fight, I would maybe lean more toward Alexa Grasso. I don't know if I would pick her, but I think she would have a better chance. But over 3 rounds, I think that Natalia Silva's got the goods here. I think that she's going to wear less damage. I think she's going to be in control of the fight despite not being the person moving forward. I don't think she gets taken down here, and I think she wins on the numbers. So give me Natalia Silva to win this fight by decision. And she probably finds herself on the official betting article of the week. The official betting article last week, again, profitable, only just though. We did not crush. We would have though if Miesha Tate decided to actually fight in the first 2 rounds versus just run into range with her hands down, throwing a body kick that landed on nothing. But still, this is a game of longevity. It's a marathon, not a race, and we still were profitable. Again, only just, but it's better than losing. So if you want the official betting article for the week, because there's going to be a lot of bets going out for UFC 315, you can find that on kunithmma.com, as well as the DFS strategy guide, lineup optimizer, data model projections, community parlay. All of that good stuff could be found on kunithmma.com, linked in the description and in a pinned comment. Back to the breakdown. Next, we have a fight between Mike Malott. He's fighting Charles Radtke this week. I am stunned by this betting line. I don't know what Mike Malott did to warrant him being this big of a favorite, but it seems kind of crazy to me because Chuck Buffalo appears to be nastier, grittier. I think he hits a lot harder. And I'm going to say it, I think Mike Malott was broken by the Neil Magny loss, because you look at that fight against Trevin Giles, he was as gun shy as they come. And I get it, right? You lose a fight, you want to go back out there, kind of take things slow. But it's not like he lost the fight because he ran into range and got slept in the first or second round. He lost the fight because he gassed and then gave up a bad position and got ground and pounded into oblivion by Neil Magny of all people. That doesn't happen. So maybe he's trying to conserve gas tank. I don't know. But what I do know is that all of Trevin Giles' losses in the UFC have been finishes, except for the time he fought Mike Malott. Went home just fine. So being super gun shy against a guy like Trevin Giles, I think if he does the same thing against Charles Radtke, he's going to be in trouble. Charles Radtke's only UFC loss came against Carlos Prates, got that nasty knee to the liver, curled up like Bo Nickel, and that happens. You guys leave Bo Nickel alone, damn it. Trying his best out there. But no, I think that Charles Radtke actually drops him like a heavy bucket. I think that he's going to land a lot harder. I think Mike Malott, I think people forget, with all the finishes and the high highlight reel and stuff, Mike Malott was getting touched up by Mickey Gall. And then getting the wins over the guys that he's gotten wins over, they're not world beaters at all. I think that Charles Radtke, his win over Matthew Semmelsberger is better than any win Michael Malott has. Called him Michael Malott. So I don't understand the line here. I'll take it, but it's not what I expected. If I'm missing something, tell me why the line is the way it is in the comments, because I'm curious to know. But I think this is clearly a fight for Charles Radtke. I think that Charles Radtke wins by knockout. Next, we have a fight between Jasmine Jasudivicius. She's fighting Jessica Andrade this week. Jasudivicius has had a great run in the UFC so far, and when she wins, it tends to be one-way traffic. She's winning in dominant fashion because she just goes out there and bullies her opponents. Strength, wrestling, control, ground and pound, good frontal chokes, anacondas, darces. And I think she's going to be real energized by the Canadian fans out there in the crowd. And I'm telling you right now, I'm getting a little bit of Jessica Andrade fatigue. Like, we make videos on the channel, right? We talk about these fighters, we talk about them time and time again, but Jessica Andrade, I feel like I'm talking about her every couple of weeks. Fought 5 times in 2023. And give me a break. It is not just because she's fighting a lot, but also, like, I tend to feel like I have to go through why she's a legend and all the people that she fought and how she was a former champion, stuff like that. But I feel like you probably get it. Like, Jessica Andrade, legend, storied history, Hall of Famer in my opinion, but this is one-way traffic. This is the type of fighter who gives her trouble. Big physical opponents who are going to take her down, and we've seen her kind of go down there and say, you know what, I'm good. I don't need to really try that much. You can let me go. I think Jasudivicius does the same thing. So give me the favorite here to overwhelm her smaller opponent. I think Jasmine Jasudivicius finishes this fight inside the distance. She probably does it by submission. Next, we have a fight between Modestas Bukauskas. He's fighting Yeong Cutelaba this week. I've been banging the Modestas Bukauskas drum since his return to the UFC. The man is not disappointed. We've gotten him right every single time. The 4 wins and even the loss against Vitor Petrino. We picked Petrino in that fight. We've got a pretty good read on Modestas. And this is one of the better lines that you're going to get from him since coming back outside of the Petrino fight. He was a pretty big dog, but nobody was picking him that week for good reason. But when you look at that line, -112, if you like Modestas Bukauskas, you should take that line. Now, I will say, I've been on record saying Yeong Cutelaba, he can't be trusted. I've said if he beats me, he beats me. But sometimes we grow tired of being beaten. So Yeong Cutelaba, there's a chance that he may have potentially put all of the pieces together. He's very naturally strong. He throws with a lot of power. He's a good offensive wrestler. He knows how to finish fights as well and has a lot of experience. As much high-level experience as you can ask for from like a non-champion, for real. Now, do I think he beats Modestas Bukauskas? No, I don't, because the man can't be trusted. I told you that. Pay attention. Wake up. If he beats me, he beats me. That's the flag that I plant on Yeong Cutelaba each and every time. And not for nothing, Modestas Bukauskas 2.0, he's been putting in some work lately. It's almost like Yusuf Zalal leaving the UFC and coming back and nobody can beat him. I believe he trains alongside Tom Aspinall, is probably helping him prepare for this fight with the wrestling. So I think he's going to do just all right in the grappling exchanges. If he gets taken down, maybe work back up to his feet once or twice. But I think that if he can nullify most of the grappling, if he doesn't spend too much time in a bad position on the mat, I think he will get the better of the striking exchanges, because Cutelaba's got more power, but I think Modestas Bukauskas is sharper. I really like the jab. He does a good job of keeping the punches down the middle. He's got killer instinct as well, so when these guys are hurt, he knows how to close them out. We've seen Cutelaba wobbled and hurt before and outside of rope-a-doping. So I think since leveling up, Modestas Bukauskas is very good. Probably beats Vitor Petrino in a rematch with the way things have been looking lately. I think he gets it done this week with his hands. I think a few 1-2s down the middle will have Cutelaba on shaky legs, and that's when he goes in for the kill. Give me Bukauskas by knockout. Next, we have Navajo Stirling. He's fighting Ivan Erslan this week. Stirling back in action. Undefeated prospect, picked up a win in his debut at the end of last year as a massive favorite. A bit disappointing at the time because he didn't finish the fight, and if you had under 2.5 for him inside the distance, you were probably pretty disappointed. But now that the dust has settled and we're here, we can look back at that fight and realize while he didn't get that finish that we were hoping for, he did win every round. And in these rounds, he did battle through adversity. And some guy who's 5-0, you don't really see that all that often, or at least they don't get the opportunity to do that in the UFC with a guy who's been around the block before. And Navajo Stirling did that. So good on him for winning in his debut against the guy that he beat the way that he beat him. I think that is more, or rather a better learning experience, more helpful than if he just went out there and blew the doors off him in the first round. And again, he comes into this one as a pretty big favorite, not as big of a favorite, but a decent favorite here. And I like it. I like the line a lot because Erslan, I think, is terrible. At least he didn't give a good account of himself in his UFC debut. Did next to nothing in his debut against Aiemann Cutelaba. Lost the fight in the third round too, when you had to have it. He kind of just laid and prayed for minutes on end. In a situation like that, you have to go for it because you know it's close. It ended in a split decision. He ends up losing that fight. You put a stamp on that. Even if you get a 10-8 round, you steal the fight. But just kind of laid and prayed, waited for it to be over, and just was too gassed to really make a big difference there. And I don't like that. I'm not going to take a gasser here against a big-bodied, unbeaten prospect who's a better athlete, better cardio, major size advantages as well. I think Stirling finishes this fight late when Erslan is tired. I think that he gets it done. I won't give you a knockout or a submission, but I will say Navajo Stirling inside the distance. Next, we're looking at a fight between Marc-Andre Barriault versus Bruno Silva. The only reason why Marc-Andre is minus 150 and not minus 300 is because he's coming off of back-to-back knockout losses, and nobody knows where that chin is at. Especially with the way that he got slept by Dustin Stoltzfus. That was very scary. So is he chinny now? I don't know. But that's important because he's got a true knockout artist standing across from him, although Bruno Silva hasn't really knocked that many people out in a very long time. So this one is very tricky. But what I don't want to do is make the mistake of kind of overthinking it, because on one side we have Bruno Silva, who has not looked like he's wanted to win a fight in a very long time, versus Marc-Andre Barriault, the power bar. He's going to bring it every time. He's fighting in front of his people. He's feeling good. If Blindado looked better in his last 1, 2, even 3 fights, I think we would have a case. There would be a case to be made that he's going to knock out Marc-Andre Barriault, but I think he's going to find himself up against the fence very early. I think power bar is going to take him down, and I think after the 5 minutes that knockout threat is gone. Not a fight I'm dying to play. I don't think you need to play it either. I would just kind of stay away from it because of the chin issues potentially for Marc-Andre, and then for just the poor effort that you're getting from Bruno Silva. But if that's what it comes down to, bad chin or bad effort, I'll take the bad chin every day of the week. So give me Marc-Andre Barriault. I think he wins this fight by decision. Next, we have a fight between Daniel Santos. He's fighting Jeong this week. Daniel Santos lost in his UFC debut against Julio Arce, and then he went on to win his next 2. And I think that's important because we saw an example of this last week. We saw Cam Smotherman just be a statue last week after putting on quite a performance against Jake Hadley as a massive underdog, short notice debutant. Looked great. A couple of weeks ago, we saw Roberto Romero get knocked out by Timmy Kawamba after going the full 15 minutes short notice debut against David Onama. Way back when, for you old heads in the comments, we saw the best example of this, Lando Venata taking it to Tony Ferguson. He doesn't win that fight, but he takes it to Tony Ferguson, pushes him to the brink, and then ends up having like an UFC career. Almost looking worse on a full camp than he did in his short notice debut. It was almost like he never looked better than he did in that moment. So sometimes I think these guys rise to the occasion and then fall short of that new expectation that we set for ourselves in our mind because we saw what they looked like with limited time to prepare against a better opponent. But for Daniel Santos, he went in there, fought Julio Arce. Julio Arce, seasoned vet, ends up losing that fight. I'm not mad at you because you looked better when you came back in the other 2. You went the opposite way of the guys that I just described, and that's what we need. And as for Jeong, I've been out on Jeong from the jump. I picked against him against Ija in a fight where he certainly lost. I can't believe they robbed Ija in that moment, but he certainly lost that fight. He ends up beating Blake Builder. I couldn't even care enough to go back and tell you if I picked against him in that one. I probably did. But I can tell you for a fact that we picked Hyder Emil against him last time out, and I know there were some people in the comments that really didn't like that pick. They were really high on Jeong, and Hyder Emil went in there and dusted him in 65 seconds. I don't know what he's done to gain like the public's respect and think that this guy is going to win a bunch of fights in the UFC. I haven't seen it yet. He's got decent size for the division, decent power as well, but I think he's benefited from some soft matchmaking. But for Daniel Santos, I think he's going to be a better prepared fighter here. I think he's okay wherever the fight goes. On the feet, he's bringing that shoot to box style, right? A lot of knees, a lot of front kicks, maybe some elbows down the middle, and I think that kind of style is good for a dude who's as linear as Lee. That long, straight right hand as well. Think Charles DuBronx dropping Justin Gaethje. They got that in their locker as well over there. And on the mat, I expect him to have better jiu-jitsu, but if the fight does hit the mat, I think that it would be on his terms. So I'm not really worried about him, being that jiu-jitsu guy who just wants to lay on his back. I think that he's going to look for takedowns and secure takedowns here. My only fear is that he's given up some size. So if he is stuck on the outside and he's kind of playing Jeong Lee's game and he's at the end of those long punches, he might have trouble closing distance, but I think that the preparation is going to be able to take care of that. I think they have a good game plan for him. I don't think he's going to look like Haider Emil did against Lee, but I do think that he's the better fighter here. I think he's better no matter where the fight goes, and I think he's going to win as a result. So give me Daniel Santos to win this fight by decision. And lastly, we have Bekzat Almakhan. He's fighting Brad Katona this week. Bekzat Almakhan back in action after getting the piss beat out of him by Umar Nurmagomedov just over a year ago. And we all remember in that first couple of seconds where he drops Umar Nurmagomedov and we're like, whoa, no way. Since then, things went so south, and I don't know if people really have that memory. Like, people probably remember him losing, but people probably remember the knockdown more because the way you felt, you're like, no way is this guy really about to pull this off. He got completely dominated in that fight. Even with a knockdown, he still lost the round. He lost 30-25 on one of the scorecards, 30-26 on the others. Dominated so much so that in the second round, he landed this many strikes. 0. And in the third round, 1 strike. We can only go based off of what we see. And I know Umar Nurmagomedov is worlds beyond what Brad Katona's bringing to the table, but this guy is almost a 2-to-1 favorite. 2-to-1 favorite against the guy who's the Ultimate Fighter twice. That's insane to me. And I think that Brad Katona's the obvious side here. Not because I think he runs through Bekzat Almakhan this week, but Brad Katona in every fight, same couple of things happen. Doesn't get knocked down, and he gets takedowns. Almakhan almost exclusively wins by knockout, and he showed us he had no answer for Umar's wrestling in his last fight. He went 0 for 5 on defending takedowns. Now, again, I don't think that Brad Katona is Umar Nurmagomedov, but Brad Katona takes down everybody that he wants to try to take down, so why couldn't he do it to this guy, laying -180? Are you out of your gourd? This guy got controlled for almost 12 minutes of a 15-minute fight, took a ton of damage, and hasn't fought in over a year. Give me a break. I love the dog money here on Brad Katona, fighting in front of his people. Plus, he's got home cooking in his back pocket if we really need it. So what could go wrong? Give me Brad Katona by decision. If you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm, and I will see you later in the week for final picks. Let's go.